Hi there, my name is Dr. Katie Saint, and this video is about how we can use reinforcement with our children. So to start with, I want to explain what I mean by reinforcement. So when I'm talking about reinforcement, I'm referring to a behavior principle that is based in many years of research on all humans. This applies to animals. This applies to every living thing in the world. We all respond to what happens immediately after our behaviors. So, if what happens immediately after our behaviors we like, we're more likely to do it again. And this is something unconscious that our brain is recording. So we don't always think about, did I like that? Did that work out okay for me? This is just something unconscious that our brains record. And so if we like what happens after something occurs, we're more likely to do it again. But if we don't like what happens after a behavior occurs, we're less likely to do it. The same thing can happen with when we do an activity, when we're around certain people, or when we're in certain places. If positive things happen that we like, we associate that place or that person with good things and we like them. But if bad things happen, negative things, things that annoy us, stress us out, all of that kind of stuff happens, then we're going to pair that person, that place, that event with what ABA calls punishment. But another way to think of that term is just negativity. You're not going to like it if too many bad things happen. So, from what the research says, it sounds like it needs to be an 80-20 ratio to pair it one way or the other. So, if you're having at least 80% positive interactions, then you're going to be paired with reinforcement, and that means you're going to be liked. But if your interactions fall below that 80%, then you start to be paired with punishment and you start to create negative associations around your interactions. So, as a parent, we want to be really mindful of this. We want to pay attention to what we're reinforcing when we're punishing or when we're reinforcing to our children. So reflect on what you want your children to do more of. And now reflect on what happens immediately after. Because if there's a delay, the shaping procedure is less powerful. The most powerful shaping happens with the very immediate consequences. So, let's say you're trying to get your child to talk more, but when they talk calmly and respectfully, you ignore them because you're busy. Maybe you have other things to attend to, you're trying to work, or there's just a number of things that are causing you to not be able to pay attention to reinforce, to give them attention. So then their behavior of talking to you doesn't get reinforced enough. It's not a consistent enough of a positive response for them to keep doing it. But they have learned that if they scream really loud, you will stop whatever you are doing to give them attention. And so they've learned, wow, this is really effective. So again, I want to remind you that this is not typically a conscious thing that your child is going to be thinking. This is something that our brains unconsciously record and then push us to do because our brains are just naturally going to do what they think works. So if your child learns that screaming works way better at getting mom and dad's attention than talking nicely, they're going to scream way more than they're going to talk nice. So it's super valuable for you to do an audit of your interactions with your child. Are you reinforcing good behavior? Are you reinforcing the behaviors that you want to see more of? So keep in mind, reinforcement is whatever the child likes. So one day I was trying to reinforce a child's behavior and I gave them a sticker. The child was so disgusted by the sticker. He thought the sensory experience of it was awful. So that was actually punishing to him. That was not reinforcing. Another example, when I tried to give reinforcement and it failed, I praised a kid. I told him how good he did, how impressed I was with him, and how I thought he was a rock star. And this kid hated compliments. So I did not reinforce his behavior at all. I was pairing myself with punishment by giving him compliments. So when we're thinking about wanting to reinforce our child's behavior, we have to think about it from their perspective. What is it that they like? What is it that makes them happy? That's what you need to do, even if it's something goofy. Say your kid likes it when you twirl in circles. If you like what they did, twirl in circles. Sometimes we have to get creative to think of what kind of reinforcement we want to give to our children in order to ensure that we are providing reinforcement for the things that we want to reinforce. But if you get good at reflecting on your patterns of reinforcement and punishment and are really intentional about providing reinforcement for the behaviors that you want to see more of, you can really transform your home. And I'm not talking about your child needs a token or a piece of candy or money for every good thing that they do. Sometimes it's just a hug or a praise or tickles, or, it can be something subtle, but as long as they're getting positive reactions that they like in response to what they just did. So pay attention to this pattern and see if you can improve it. This is one of those behaviors that we can all get better at. And so when we're mindful of what our child likes, that's reinforcement. If we're good about doing those kind of things after they do stuff that we want to see more of, those behaviors are going to increase. But we also have to be mindful of what's punishing to them. So remember, the definition of punishing is just anything that they don't like, anything that annoys them, is unpleasant for them. So we need to be mindful of, if they just did something that we like, that we want to see more of, but then we did something punishing, we did something that annoyed them, that irritated them, we just punished that behavior. And so we're less likely to see that behavior in the future. So be mindful of these patterns and you can really transform your home. Reach out to your therapy team for ideas. Sometimes it's hard to see your own patterns. So asking a therapist to give you ideas on, hey, how do you think I'm doing with my patterns of reinforcement and punishment? Do you have any ideas for how I can be better at reinforcing behaviors that I want to see more of? Have you noticed any times when I was actually providing punishment for a behavior I want to see more of? Seek that feedback from your therapy team and see if you can grow and help improve the quality of life in your home. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. I hope this video helps provide peace and connection and happiness with your family. And again, reach out to your therapy team or to myself for more instruction and learning.